Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. I'm Art Steinberg, I'm the Vice President on your Board of Directors. And today we're going to talk about the capital contribution amendment that we've proposed and it's being voted on right now. We're going to talk a little bit about the budget, the reserve study, how we're going to manage owners' open forums going forward, and just a very brief comment about the election of new board members. But before I do that, I'd just like to welcome all the new owners. In addition to welcoming everyone, we have a lot of new owners in the building. In the past, I've met with, over the past 3 years, I've met with 82 owners, mostly new owners, in either small group settings or individually. And we've, it's kind of an onboarding process to answer questions, to see if there's any areas we could provide assistance. And Lizzie's been with me for most of that. Lizzie, Elizabeth is our Assistant General Manager. She's also a videographer. So if anything goes wrong with this video, it's her fault. And occasionally other board members would join in too. And we're planning on doing that again. We're going to, by invitation only, new owners will have the opportunity to meet in small groups with us. We'll have some sessions during normal business hours, and we'll have some sessions in the evening for those who are too busy during the day. And hopefully, you'll find that useful. Let's talk about the budget first and how that relates to the capital contribution amendment that we proposed and why we're proposing it. We looked at several different budget proposals, ranging from 1.5% to 6%. And we were looking at that from the point of view of balancing our operational expenses with the responsibility we have to properly fund the reserves for future issues that we know we're going to have to deal with. And that has to be done in coordination with our auditor. We have an external auditor, with our reserve study specialist. It's a complicated business, but the main variable was getting the reserves to where we need them to be when they need to be there. And it looked like we were headed towards 3%. It looks like we're heading towards 3%. But we decided with this proposed capital contribution amendment, assuming it's going to be approved, and we certainly hope it will be, we could do 2%. And the reason we can do that is the realtor we consult with, Lisa Nelson, who was at our meeting when we were voting on the budget, said we could reasonably expect to sell 20 to 25 units in the Savoy during the coming year, 2023. If new owners put in an average of $1,000 each, assuming that the average monthly association fee is about $500, they range from the 300s up to the high 600s, I believe, but on the average, I'll say about 500. If they contribute 2 months worth, or about $1,000, and 20 to 25 units flipped, that gives us an extra $20,000 to $25,000 that would go directly into reserves. That's tantamount to an entire % of what it takes to run this place. We need about $2.1 million a year to operate the Savoy. It's a complicated business. We have 9 full-time staff members in this building every day that do the day-to-day operations, 9 people. We have 11 contractors that come and go doing various things, from elevator maintenance to landscaping to trash chute maintenance. The list goes on and on. It's a complicated business, and it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of money. The reserves we use to make capital improvements in the building and for repair and maintenance items. And just to give you an example, in the past 16 years, I'm an original owner. I've been here for 16 years, about to start my 17th year. Since I've been here, we've completely upgraded the interior of this building, for everything from the fitness center all the way to the recharge room and everything in between. You know, it's been refurnished, it's been redecorated. We brought in a decorator from Ethan Allen. The building has been recarpeted and painted inside. The media room has been completely upgraded, thanks to our treasurer, Jeff. And it's a wonderful room if you haven't seen it. You know, we upgraded the Think room with new computers. The Imagine room is beautifully decorated. The Recharge room, which is the one we use the most and where we meet, the game room. We even replaced all the windows in this building, 1,700 windows. That project alone cost about, as I recall correctly, $700,000 or $800,000, but it needed to be done. And we did the garage ceiling project, which cost, I think, about $400,000. And we've just finished renovating the exterior of the building. You know, we have future projects planned next year. We're looking at some major roof repair projects. The flat roof is in pretty good shape. Most of that has been replaced. We have to replace the shingle roof, and we have to replace the membrane under the catwalk. Those are two huge projects. We estimate that those two projects are going to cost in the neighborhood of $700,000 to $800,000. We don't have the exact figures. We're going to put that out to bid. We'll get at least 3 proposals. And there may be another complication in that too, because the catwalk, which goes around the entire perimeter of the building, is where all the air conditioners are mounted for our 365 units. And in order to replace the membrane under the catwalk, after we replace any rotted wood we find, those have to be raised. And to raise them, the refrigerant has to be drained. They have to be raised. We have to make the repair. Then the air conditioning unit has to be reinstalled, and the refrigerant has to be put back in. The unit has to be recharged. It's another major complication, and it could involve yet a third contract. So big expenses. You know, in the future also, we looking out 7 or 8 years, the reserve study calls for replacing the elevator cabs. That's going to cost about $1.25 million, probably more by the time we get there. And ultimately, you know, what we're looking at and what we're preparing to do is have the money to replace the membrane when that happens. Now, what the membrane is it's what separates our courtyard from the garage. And if there's a catastrophic failure of that membrane, we'd have to bring in heavy construction vehicles, dig up the entire courtyard, the swimming pool, all the walkways, the brickwork, the pavers, everything, landscaping, replace the membrane, then reconstitute the courtyard. And that's not supposed to happen until the building is 30 years old. So maybe 12 years from now is when the reserve study calls for the most likely time we're going to need to do that. Now, the reserve study is not an exact science. It's like, you know, how long people are going to live. You know, I think males have a life expectancy of 73 years. I'm already beyond my expiration date. Females, 76 years. But that's just that's just an average. You know, our membrane may last longer, or it may fail in the next year or two. We don't know. No need to panic. There's no indication it's going to fail. Usually, it starts with leaks somewhere around the swimming pool, and at least that's what I've been told by a structural engineer. But there's no indication that's about to happen anytime soon. But when it does, we want to be financially prepared. When it happens, it'll probably take about $6 million to do all that work. And we want to have the $6 million when we get to that point. So that's what we're working towards. And, you know, it's a very dynamic process. The second thing we're doing is we're trying to strengthen the community. You know, we're always working on improving the property. We're trying to strengthen the community always, and we do that by developing policies. When you get 500 to 600 people living under one roof, you got to have policies. You got to have a covenants committee that enforces the regulations, the rules. Otherwise, this place would be, you know, it would become a zoo. We have social events. We have communications like we're doing right now. We have the newsletter that Lizzie puts out every month. We have you know, board meetings. We have small group settings. You know, we have many ways that we reach out to people, and many ways that everyone can reach out to management and to the board of directors. And the third thing that we're working on is maintaining a strong equity position. You know, we have to keep the money in good order to not only pay for daily operations, but to pay for all these future projects, some of which I told you about. So one of the things we're looking at doing, that we're asking for your help in doing, is to vote yes on the capital contribution amendment. Nobody gets hurt. You know, this applies to new owners only. When a new owner goes to closing, he or she will be asked to contribute 2 months worth of their association fees to the reserves. Historically, original owners contributed 3 months. When I first moved in here, I had to pay 3 months worth in addition to 1 month in advance, so basically 4 months, on 2 units. And that wasn't even a blip on the radar screen in my making a decision of whether or not to buy in here. When you're making a $400,000 or $500,000 or $600,000 decision, you're not going to base that decision on $1,000 being contributed. You're gonna base it on the larger numbers and whether or not you want to live here. But having said that, there's been times in the past when as many as 40 units have sold in a 12-month period. If we had had this in effect for, let's say, last year, and I think we maybe sold close to 40 units during the last year, that would have brought in about $40,000, which is equivalent to about 2% on our budget, on our association fees. Had that been in place last year, we might have been able to get by with a 1% increase this year, and maybe even a 0% increase. Nobody gets hurt by voting yes. You know, new owners benefit by having a smaller association fee than they would have otherwise. When going forward, old owners benefit by having a smaller association fee than they would pay otherwise. Everyone benefits. And then, you know, people that have been here for a long time, or even if you've been here for a year or two, about 1/3 of your association fee that you pay goes into reserves. You know, we've spent money and years building up a current reserve of about $3 million, a little bit more, after having spent millions of dollars from the reserves and improving this building. So, you know, and we want to be able to keep on doing that, and we want to be ready for the biggest expense we think we might have, which is replacing that membrane. So, please vote yes. Nobody gets hurt. New owners will benefit by it. Current owners will benefit by it. Everyone will benefit by it. It will not affect the marketability of people who are thinking of selling. No one's going to make a buy-sell decision over $1,000. You make buy-sell decisions over hundreds of thousands of dollars. The next thing I'd like to discuss is upcoming board meeting. Owners' open forums are in every meeting we have. And it's an opportunity for members of the association, for residents to address the board, to address management. And in the past, a lot of these board meetings have been dominated by 1 or 2 very outspoken people. There's been a lot of pontificating, grandstanding, disrupting, interrupting. One time people even brought in alcohol. That's not going to be allowed anymore. We have one person who's almost at every meeting, who once he starts his rant, other people just get up and walk out. And we're not going to allow any of that to happen anymore. So what we're going to do is we're asking everyone who's planning on attending our board meetings. We got 2 of them coming up in November, the annual meeting, and then the regular quarterly meeting will immediately follow the annual meeting. If you have a discussion point you want to bring to the attention of management of the board, just briefly submit it in an email to management. That'll give us an opportunity to do our research. We'll be better prepared to respond to you. And then you'll be called upon by the presiding officer. And we'll have a very brief, crisp discussion. And we'll also have a written record of what your discussion point was, what the response was, what the follow-up that's required. So, you know, get your messages in by 2 o'clock on the day of the meeting. The next meeting, I believe, is Thursday, November 3rd. Does that sound right? Thursday, November 3rd. You know, make it a brief email, no laundry list. You know, if you have a discussion point, just send it in, and that's the way we're going to manage it. And then everything will be included. Everything that you submit and what the responses to that are will be included in an addendum to the minutes. We have an election coming up. There's 3 seats that are open. And 4 candidates have applied for those 3 seats. I'm not authorized to recommend who to vote for, but after having discussions with legal, what I am authorized to say is this. Each candidate has submitted his statement, and I ask you to read these statements carefully and make your assessment about who has the executive skills, the temperament, the knowledge, the experience to represent your best interests going forward. Also assess who is most compatible with your values, with your goals for our community, with your sense of decency. And by doing that, the 3 most qualified candidates, I believe, will be intuitively obvious to most of us, in fact, to almost all of us. And let me close with just a quick story. Decades ago, when my children were young, they decided they wanted horses, and we lived on acreage. So I said to Donna, let's go out in the property and fence the yard. So we went out back. She had the sledgehammer. I grabbed the fence post, and I said, I'm going to get down here and position this post. And when I nod my head, I want you to pound it. That's the last thing I remember. But I will remember to vote yes for the capital contribution amendment. I ask you to remember to do that too. And please vote in the upcoming board election. That vote's going to go live on Monday. It's being done through Vote HOA. We vote electronically. These are 2 separate votes. Please don't confuse the 2. Just because you vote on one, that does not take care of the other one. 2 separate votes. And we need the widest participation we can get. So, yes on capital contribution. Vote for your 3 favorite candidates for our board of directors. We look forward to seeing you November 3rd. And new owners, you'll be receiving an invite from Lizzie once we get our schedule together, and we're going to have these gatherings to meet with us in either small groups, or in some cases you may want to meet individually, and that's fine too. We can make those arrangements. But again, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.